Every time you overexplain yourself, you give something away. Not just words, not just information. You give away your urgency, your fear, your need to be understood, your need to be accepted, your need to control how people see you. And once people can feel that need in you, they can use it. That is how a lot of people lose power without realizing it. Not because they are weak, but because they keep revealing too much, too fast, too emotionally, too often. In this video, I'm going to show you why overexplaining makes you easier to control, why people who need the most understanding often give away the most power, and how to become calmer, harder to read, and more difficult to manipulate by learning one thing: how to stop handing out access through unnecessary explanation. Because power does not always leak through what you do. A lot of the time, it leaks through what you keep trying to prove. Most people think explaining themselves is harmless. It isn't. Over-explaining usually comes from one of three places. You want approval, you want to avoid conflict, or you are trying to control someone else's perception of you. That means every long explanation carries emotional information. It tells people where you are uncertain. It tells people what you are afraid of. It tells people what they can pressure. It tells people where your self-respect is still negotiable. And once someone sees what you are desperate to protect, they know where to press. That is why over-explaining is not just a communication habit. It is a leak. The people who control rooms, conversations, and social dynamics are usually not the ones saying the most. They are the ones revealing the least. They do not rush to correct every misunderstanding. They do not write paragraphs for people who already decided how they want to see them. They do not beg to be interpreted correctly. Why? Because they understand something most people learn too late. The more you need people to get you, the more power they have over your nervous system. If your peace depends on being understood by everyone, then everyone has access to your peace. That is dangerous, because not everyone wants clarity. Some people want access, some want leverage, some want to see how emotionally available you still are. And the more you explain, the more data you give them. This is why being unreadable is powerful, not fake, not cold, not performative. Powerful, because unreadable people are harder to move. You cannot easily bait them. You cannot easily guilt them. You cannot easily pull them into emotional labor. You cannot easily make them reveal their weak points in the middle of a conversation. They pause, they filter, they choose what gets access, and that pause is where sovereignty begins, because most people don't lose control in the reaction, they lose it in the need to explain the reaction. Here's the deeper truth. Over-explaining is often an attempt to manage discomfort. The discomfort of being misunderstood. The discomfort of disappointing someone. The discomfort of not being liked. The discomfort of not getting immediate emotional resolution. So people explain. They explain the boundary. They explain the silence. They explain the delay. They explain the change. They explain the no. But powerful people understand something different. Not every discomfort needs to be solved with words. Some discomfort needs to be endured. Because the moment you can tolerate being misunderstood without collapsing into explanation, you become much harder to control. This is where Stoic self-mastery starts to matter. A disciplined person does not treat every emotional impulse like an instruction. Just because you feel tension does not mean you need to speak. Just because you feel misunderstood does not mean you need to defend. Just because someone is uncomfortable does not mean you need to rescue the moment. Sometimes the strongest response is restraint. Sometimes the strongest sentence is shorter. Sometimes the strongest move is silence. Sometimes the strongest answer is, "I said what I said." No speech, no courtroom presentation, no emotional collapse trying to make your decision feel acceptable to everyone else. That is real power. If you want to know whether someone still owns too much space in your mind, watch how much you feel the need to explain yourself to them. That urge reveals everything. It reveals who you still want approval from, who you still fear disappointing, who you still believe has the power to define you, who still has access to your emotional center. And once you see that clearly, you have a choice. Keep feeding that dynamic or start closing the gate. Because a gate is not hatred. A gate is structure. A gate says, not everything gets inside me. Not everybody gets the long version. Not every conversation deserves my full inner world. So what do you do instead? You answer once, calmly. You stop repeating yourself just because someone wants more access. You stop giving emotional detail to people who have not earned emotional depth. You stop explaining boundaries to people who only respect boundaries after you exhaust yourself. You stop performing transparency for an audience that would never give you the same grace. And most importantly, you learn how to let silence do its work. Because silence reveals things. It reveals who respects your decision, who pushes it, who questions it, who panics when they no longer have easy access to you. Silence is not empty. Silence is diagnostic. So remember this, the more you explain yourself, the more material people have to work with. Your urgency, your guilt, your fear, your need to be seen correctly. And the more of that you reveal carelessly, the easier you become to manage. So stop handing out the blueprint. Speak clearly, speak briefly, mean what you say, and let your calm do what your over-explaining never could. If this hits something real in you, like, share, comment, and subscribe. And in the comments, write this: I do not owe endless explanations for clear decisions.